So hi, everybody. Welcome to the last week of the 2021 virtual VSSA program. I am so thrilled that you're here. And as you guys know, it's Wednesday, which means we are talking about the MD route and the MD path. And it's the last week, which means you've heard people's stories, you've heard the journeys, you know a little bit about the structure of medical training, and hopefully you're interested. So now you can hear about the best ways to get in and what the admissions process looks like. And we are just so lucky to have Jennifer Kimble here to talk about Vanderbilt and admissions here, but to give you some tips and tricks along the way. Jen and I have known each other now for a number of years, and every time she speaks, I learn something new. So you really have a pot of gold here. So thank you so much, Jen, for being here. I really appreciate it. I know that they're going to learn a lot. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks so much. As Dr. Roman said, I'm Jen Kimble. I'm the Director of Admissions at Vanderbilt School of Medicine. And in my former life, I was the Director of Pre-Med Advising at Georgia Tech and at Emory for a very long time. So I'm happy to answer any and all questions you have about the admissions process. Obviously, I'm going to tell you about Vanderbilt and what I think makes us so amazing and such a great place to learn medicine. But then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the admissions process for us and then just general pre-med advice. So I really want this to be as conversational as possible as we can make this over Zoom. I am going to show a slide deck just because if you're like me, Zoom fatigue is real. And so sometimes it's nice just to be able to kind of read words off of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started. Let's see. Okay, can you all see my screen? PowerPoint about to start? Awesome, thumbs up, fabulous. Alrighty, so let's begin. Start, okay. So Jen Kimble, like I said, I really do want this to be as conversational as we can make it. So please feel free to jump in. And if it's a slide that I'm gonna talk about in a couple of slides from now, I might just say, hang on a sec, we'll get to that as much as we can. So anytime I do a presentation for people, I always like to start with a picture from White Coat. And the reason why is because you, depending on where you are in your journey towards a career in medicine, you have either been toiling away through like orgo and biochem and physics and whatnot, and you're like, wow, I'm really tired. But let this picture be your motivation to stay the course and to stick with it. It's kind of like a little bit of ammunition to kind of keep you well charged for this journey you're about to embark on. So in case you are not aware, here's a couple of points about kind of what makes Vanderbilt Vanderbilt. We are a top research institution. And I'm going to use the term research a lot in this talk, but I don't want you to think that research is just pipetting and petri dishes. We really look at it as more in the lines of intellectual curiosity about something. Because we're a private school, we're able to accept students from all over the nation, all over the globe in our class. So it's a very diverse class that you'll be with. And here in Nashville, we have a lower cost of living and less traffic than a lot of other major cities. And the reason why this key point is on the slide is because when you start your medical school journey, you're going to be responsible for obviously paying your tuition bill, but you'll also have to take out loans for living expenses. And so at the end of the day, you're paying back a lot of loans. It's nice to kind of attend a medical school that the cost of living is a little bit lower. And I'm happy to answer all the questions you might have about financial aid at the end. So here's a couple of pictures about the vibe here in Nashville. I often tell people that it is warm in the South, but I just spent a week in the Midwest and it was hotter there and more humid than it is in the South. So it's pretty moderate. We've got a lot of great water sports here. The river runs right through downtown Nashville. A great sports scene. Preds, #1 team in my heart. Loudest fans in the nation of all sporting events. Music City, not just country music, and the great food scene. So tell you a little bit about Vanderbilt. Yes, we have a lot of great traditions. Vanderbilt School of Medicine has been around for quite some time, but we're not so focused on who we once were, that we're not afraid to kind of look forward and say, okay, what's come down the pike? How can we be innovative? We do hold Nobel Prizes in medicine here in the building that I'm sitting in, but we also, like I said, aren't just resting on our. So what we've done is we have looked at what we need to do to train 21st century learners to be effective physicians. And so we came up with Curriculum 2.0. The reason why we call this Curriculum 2.0 is because much like your phone upgrades the version operating system 2.2, 2.2.4, 2.2.8, it's constantly evolving and stuff. That way you don't have a complete overhaul of your operating system. Think of our curriculum this way too. So our curriculum is constantly evolving and updating to keep its kind of finger on the pulse of what's going on in medicine and society. So here's some key points about our unique curriculum that we have here. The takeaways that I want you to take note of. First of all, we are a competency-based curriculum, meaning we are pass-fail your first 2 years of medical school. Why is this helpful for you as a learner? Have you ever been in a class and you've become so focused on making a grade in the class that you take time out of your day to go, okay, if I make a 97 on the next 2 exams and at least make an 85 on that end of the term paper, then I will make an A in this class. And you start to kind of lose sight of what you're supposed to learn because you're becoming so grade focused. That's what we've done by removing the grading system and replacing it with a pass-fail system. And so we really want you to focus on learning your first 2 years of medical school and not focus so much on a specific grade. Our curriculum is very individualized during your last 2 years of medical school, and I'll go into more detail of that during the immersion phase. You also have a lot of support through portfolio coaches that are faculty members that will help you set and achieve goals. College mentors, which I'll talk about a little bit, but we do a lot to make sure that we challenge and support you while you're in medical school. So what does your first year of medical school look like? It's very colorful. So the top bar will show you that we are kind of a systems-based approach to medicine. We start off big with human blueprint architecture. In fact, our first year medical students are just started with us, and today is their first day of HBNA. So they're in their classes right now. Then we'll work all the way down through the human body and end up with brain behavior movement, dealing with the nervous system. In this colorful example, their band at the top, you'll also see that we have foundations of healthcare delivery. That will be your continuity clinic, where you learn behind the scenes of medicine, behind the scenes of doctoring. How do you take a physical? How do you read a medical record? How do you interpret this lab report? That kind of stuff. PD is physical diagnosis. That's going to be a clinic that supports what you're learning about in the curriculum. And then learning communities and research, that's going to be an opportunity for you as in a learning community to come together to discuss more topical issues that we're facing in healthcare in a smaller group environment with a faculty mentor. Research, we do not expect you to research your first year of medical school. We want you to be a medical student your first year of medical school. But what we're doing your first year is we're kind of planting the seed like, hey, are you interested in this? Have you thought about that? Let's talk about this and stuff. So we're kind of like broad-based approaching you and getting you excited and curious about the what ifs in medicine. Bottom slide, part of the slide will show you what your average week will look like. We do case-based learning, meaning there will be about 6 to 8 of you in a class with faculty mentor. You will come in and come up with a prognosis and treatment plan for your patient. You do some outside reading, you have a faculty mentor to help serve as kind of guardrails for your class. And then large group, medium, labs, and stuff kind of in the olive color. Let's say, for example, we're learning about polycystic kidney disease. During the labs, you're going to be in the gross anatomy lab doing dissection on the renal system. Maybe your donor has unremarkable kidneys, everything looks normal, but we still need you to see the diseased organ. So Your class is going to go into the pathology lab, break up into smaller groups, and look and learn about the diseased organs with that. So in the afternoons, once again, polycystic kidney disease, you might go to your continuity clinic on Monday, and let's say you're always going to a pediatrics clinic. So you're probably not going to deal with polycystic kidney disease right there. You're going to be dealing with peds. The blue boxes in the afternoons, you're going to be maybe in our nephrology clinic, maybe in a dialysis clinic, dealing with patients who are dealing with polycystic kidney disease. The tan boxes are going to be self-directed learning. That is a big phrase that we use here to describe study on your own. And so you might go back and talk to the nephrology physician that you met with earlier that day to kind of discuss some more what ifs. Maybe you and a couple of your classmates go into an empty classroom and write all over the whiteboards. Maybe you go to back to your apartment and take an afternoon nap and then go to your favorite coffee house to study in the afternoon. It's your time to do it as you wish. So all throughout your first year, we are giving you plenty of clinical experiences to then put you in the clinics for your foundations of clinical care. Sometimes people call it your core rotations year. This is during your second year of medical school. And a lot of other medical schools, this year is pushed back to your third and fourth year. The reason why we move it up to your second year is because hopefully you either A, know what you want to be when you grow up at the end of your second year, or B, know what you don't want to be when you grow up, but maybe you're still kind of on the fence for a couple of different things. Gives you time to kind of explore those opportunities. It also gives you time to do things to help you stand out in the competitive residency match for some of the more competitive residency opportunities. So all y'all are going to rotate through med, surg, peds, OB-GYN, whatnot. We're still going to do the foundations of healthcare delivery, where we're still learning kind of behind the scenes of doctoring. We're still going to meet once in a while to do your learning communities and research discussions. For research, during your second year, you're kind of starting to come up with your question of what you want answered because your third year, you're going to do research. I'll show that next slide, which is the immersion phase. So third and fourth year is going to be your immersion phase of the curriculum. So everybody during the third and fourth year does something a little bit different. And so this example shows you what a student who wanted to go into emergency medicine did. All of our students have to take the same number, 6 classes of advanced clinical electives. Everybody has to take 4 classes in an integrated science course. Everybody has to take one course in their acting internship. But our students can set this up however they want. We do a lot of mentorship to make sure you're taking classes appropriately that are going to make you competitive for residency and help with your professional development. So case in point, here's a student, emergency medicine, their advanced clinical elective, they took anesthesiology. And you're probably thinking, why is that helpful? The reason why this is helpful, it's something we would advise our students, is because in emergency medicine, you're doing a lot of intubation. And it's a chaotic environment as an emergency room physician. But doing anesthesiology, you get to practice your intubation techniques in a more controlled environment. So it just kind of helps you with professional development. Shade Tree Clinic is our student-run clinic that all of our students have the opportunity to volunteer at, but we can also give you course credit for it if you wish. Away rotations, we have pretty much everything here on campus. For our students, if whatever they want to go into for residency, but sometimes students want to get their foot in the door because they would love to match at UCLA in emergency medicine. And so we have a relationship with medical schools that our students can go and almost do kind of a visiting student transfer exchange student. That's the word I needed. So you go there for a month to UCLA emergency medicine and then come back to Vanderbilt. Just kind of gets your name known there. And then on the flip side of that, while you're rotating with us, you're going to meet students that are medical students at other medical schools that are doing a rotation at Vanderbilt because this is where they want to match for residency. So second example I'm going to show you is a student who at the end of the second year was kind of on the fence with a couple of different things, just not really ready to commit and come up with, these are the classes I want to drill down on a little bit more. So through advising and counseling, we kind of figured out the student was really more interested in more visuals of medicine. So we had the student rotate the derm path, and then we finally clicked on with radiology. And so this is an example of the pathway students have that. As you can see here, courses are very different, but just to show you that you can kind of really focus and personalize your last years of medical school. Students also will have 5 flex months where, and each one of these classes is a month long, but they'll have about 5 flex months where they don't register for anything. It's kind of time off, if you will. You get to pick with it as you wish. So for some of our students, if they want to do all of their flex months during their 4th year because they want to go into a very competitive residency and they don't want to have to worry about being a student when they get a phone call that says, hey, can you come interview with us tomorrow? They want to be able to just get on a plane and go and interview and stuff. Okay, fine. We have some students that want to continue to take like a summer break after their 3rd year of medical school. So we'll take 2 flex months off after their 3rd year of medical school. Everybody's a little bit different with that. The other thing is we do a research phase of 3 to 6 months during the 3rd year of medical school. And like I said, we've been building on it. And so our students really do research in whatever they want to do. We often joke that the only thing that we've yet to have a student do research in is in our School of Music here at VSSA. So we're always very interested in people who are intellectually curious about kind of pushing the envelope a little bit in different areas of health. For our students who are really passionate about research, we do offer the MD PhD program here at Vanderbilt. We'll have about 16 positions for that out of roughly about 550 applicants. And if memory serves, I think Dr. Williams is going to talk to you guys a little bit more detail about the MD PhD program. We also have a program called MIDP, and the only reason I'm showing you this slide is just to kind of show you a little bit more about how diverse your class is going to be. We have 2 spots reserved for students who already have their PhDs in engineering or applied science that now want to get their MD credentials. Our students who are not in the MIDP program, though, can also work with these students on take some of the classes that they're taking, listen to guest presenters. We have a student organization that kind of focuses on medical entrepreneurship. So you'll still have that kind of that environment if you are so inclined. So what makes Vanderbilt Vanderbilt? When I ask my students, what do you think really makes it kind of different here than other medical schools that you might know about from either having friends at those schools or from doing a visiting student rotation there? They all say the same thing. Everyone is really nice here. Everybody really looks after each other. So we have a really strong student wellness model, and I've shown an example here for you of what that looks like. And so we're really kind of trying to educate the whole physician and not just academics. And so we'll have student leaders that will be involved in kind of mentoring, and they'll help with our college system with that. We have students that focus in on social, and like plan a lot of great events for the students and stuff. But I think really, like I said, the fact that everybody here is really kind and looks after each other is kind of one thing that sets us apart. In that vein, our colleges is something also that we get a lot of feedback on that is really impressive to our students. And so your first day of orientation, you'll be sorted into a college, very Harry Potter-ish. We have sorting hat and everything. And so with your college, that will be your home base for your 4+ years here at Vanderbilt. You'll have faculty mentors, you'll have career advising come through that, but we also just do fun things also. We do a big college reveal. These are our students that are getting matched in the different colleges in the pictures. College Cup, it's kind of like your 5th grade field day. We have like little relay races and stuff, dance competition, Iron Chef, trivia, all sorts of things. But it's really a strong part of our culture. At Vanderbilt, we also have a really strong commitment to academic diversity and inclusion. We have a lot of great student organizations that support our students. We also work very closely with VUMC to make sure that excuse me, we're using the same language as the house staff physicians, the nursing staff and stuff use. So we do bystander training, unconscious bias, all sorts of things to really make sure that our students feel supported when they're in the clinics with that. Match day, where do our students go after they graduate from Vanderbilt? Easy answer is they honestly go wherever they want to go. I mean, we have students that, really want to specialize. They want to go to the #1 residency program in that specialization. Great. That's what they want to go do. We have other students that are really passionate about family medicine, general medicine. They want to be a primary care doctor in an underserved community. Great. We give them what they need to do to be an important part of the community there. So honestly, our students go wherever they want to go. And I think one of the main reasons why our students have no problem matching for residency is we do a lot of advising and support. We also have the Careers in Medicine group, CIMs, that also help our students network with different residency programs. So where our class is held, we are in Eskin Biomedical Library. It's a beautiful space here on campus. If you imagine us being sort of a horseshoe, we're at the base of the horseshoe. All around the horseshoe is going to be med center buildings. In the center is kind of a nice courtyard and stuff. And then across the bottom of our horseshoe is the main Vanderbilt University campus. So we're all sort of on the same footprint here at Vanderbilt. So it really allows for a lot of collaboration for our students and really helps our students to get out of the medical school bubble because some of our students are involved in like the Graduate Student Association, where they meet students in the law school, nursing school, theology school, and whatnot. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about what will make you competitive for Vanderbilt. So our mission statement guides our admissions process. We're really looking for future leaders and scholars in medicine. We moved away from having prerequisites a number of years ago because all of our students honestly had different pathways and journeys to medical school. And it was really kind of limiting our applicant pool to say, no, we won't accept your AP credit. No, we won't accept these engineering classes or biology classes and stuff like that. So we kind of put the ownership back on you to make sure you're selecting classes that give you a good foundation for medical school. I will tell you that these courses are going to be really what prepares you for your MCAT at whatever institution you're at. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about our funnel. And note that I have on here the 2020 entry cycle and not 2021, because 2020 is more realistic of what our cycle looks like. The 2021 cycle was just so last year we had 7,400 applicants apply to Vanderbilt when we typically only have about 6,000, and we didn't expect it, and we were kind of overwhelmed. We had a 26% increase in applicants last year, but this shows you a little bit more realistically kind of how the numbers flow works for us. I always tell people the biggest cut comes between who submits an AMCAS application and who makes it to the interview. So if you interview at Vanderbilt, odds are very much in your favor of being accepted. I'm also providing you the typical GPA range for our admitted class and the MCATs. And just to let you know, for the class that just started with us, the lowest GPA we had was, I think, a 3.2, and the lowest MCAT percentile was a 70, like 70. So just to kind of tell you a little bit about our response to COVID, I think it's helpful for you to know this because at the beginning of the 2019-2020 academic year, COVID was not on anyone's radar. And I'm just really proud at how quickly we pivoted to make sure that we were taking care of our students. And so we really worked very hard to make sure that our students felt supported in the clinics. We had plenty of PPEs. Because our school is so personalized, physical distancing wasn't a problem. We had plenty of space for our students to still feel safe in the clinics. When the AAMC asked us to pull our students out across the nation, We created a pandemic course for our students who couldn't physically be here. And we purchased a lot of high-tech opportunities for learning. So basically, our current students didn't miss a beat in their curriculum. They were able to stay on track towards graduation. Our dean was very committed for us to start on time and in person for the 2020-21 entry cycle. We used a lot of physical distancing, but our students were able to come to Nashville and be a part of that. And when restrictions let up, I think it was what, March, maybe April, my months are in June. But nonetheless, when the restrictions kind of let up a little bit more, we are kind of redoing all of the social things and stuff. So like our welcome picnic, even though our current first years are finished, well, reverse that. Our students who just started their second year with us, we're actually having a welcome picnic for them because we weren't able to do that last year because of COVID. So I think it really says a lot that we're still trying to take care of our students since they missed out on kind of those fun things. And so the bottom couple of bullet points tell you what we did in admissions to kind of respond to the pandemic. We increased our interview season by a month to accommodate the bolus and applications, just to make sure that students who put a lot of time and effort in their application didn't get squeezed out because, well, we've interviewed what we normally interview and it just didn't seem like a fair practice to us. I will say that medical schools and Vanderbilt's so different are still going to kind of require pre-med students to have some sort of medical exposure. And so make sure that on your AMCAS application, you're listing the informational interviews you've done, any kind of telemedicine, books you've read, you know, whatever you've been able to do to still really show that you want to pursue a career in medicine if you're not able to volunteer in a hospital due to COVID restrictions. We also added a secondary prompt, which is the bottom optional. I am sharing with you the secondary questions that we're asking for the 2022 cycle, which we're currently in right now. Just because these are different from what they've been in previous years, I want to make sure everybody kind of knows what's out there. We used to require an autobiographical sketch. It was very vague. We kind of streamlined that a little bit more, but these are what our secondary questions are. So it makes somebody competitive for Vanderbilt. So this is not a checklist. I don't want you to have kind of that approach to it, because if it's a checklist, we kind of have the mindset of you do this, that, and the other, and it guarantees submissions. But unfortunately, there are no guarantees in the process. The first thing that we really want to see is that fire in the belly, that passion for medicine, and that's going to come out through your admissions essays. We're going to expect you to have a strong academic history, and the reason why is we really want to make sure that if we admit you and you start with Vanderbilt, that you will be able to graduate from Vanderbilt School of Medicine. We don't want to take chances on somebody that we just don't think can handle the curriculum. Letters of evaluation are very important to Vanderbilt. We see these as peer evaluations. What does a science professor at Auburn University think about you as an Auburn student or whatever? If you are like, wow, I didn't know these were so important. If you just Google the AAMC letter evaluation guidelines, you can kind of see what medical schools are expecting to read about that. Vanderbilt's going to expect you to have leadership skills. We're going to expect you to have research. Medical exposures are also important. Please note that I'm not calling these shadowing hours. To me, shadowing hours is a barrier to entry to the profession, because unless you are of the social capital where you know doctors that you can easily shadow, it's very hard for pre-med students to get shadowing hours. So I like this to be called medical exposures instead. And this is just for you to challenge yourself to make sure this is the right career path for you. There's a difference in the applications we review from people who, excuse me, have not had any medical exposure. When we ask them why they want to be a doctor, it's very like surface answers, like I want to help people and I like science, versus the folks who have had the opportunity to be in a medical arena through various exposures. Their responses are a little bit more effective. And then at the end of the day, we're going to learn from each other. And what can we learn from you? What do you bring to the table that other people don't? What are your interests and your hobbies? So I always, sorry about this. I always like to have kind of a picture of kind of the well-rounded applicant and then kind of the pointy applicant. So it's still a little well-rounded, but there's that point there of a strong interest in an area. And when we're looking at applicants, we really like those people that are kind of pointy, because the well-rounded, there's nothing wrong with them. But what we like to see is that the points, all the points of our class kind of come together and make a well-rounded class. So if you are passionate about athletics and you were an athlete or played club sports or whatever, let us know. Maybe you are a photographer and you've taken amazing pictures and this is a great hobby for you to have. Put it on your application. You've written short stories, put it on your application. We like those people who just add something unique to the mix. So here's some just general tips for you. This year or a couple of years, depending where you are kind of in the cycle, there will be a lot of virtual events. The AAC has virtual fairs going on. Make sure you attend those and learn as much as you can about the different programs. Rolling admissions plays a huge part in being competitive for medical school. So when you look on websites, you'll see that the deadline to apply isn't until November 1st or whatever. And you think, oh, I've got all the time in the world. Deadline's not until November 1st. But what happens is we're processing applications since we have so many throughout the cycle. So at the beginning of the cycle, we have 650 interview slots open. We're very generous with who we give those interview slots to. You wait till the end of the cycle, by the time we get to review you, we might only have 10 interview slots available, and it becomes very hard to get to one of those spots. And going back to one of the first things I mentioned, the biggest cut comes between who applies and who makes it to the interview for us. I've worked with pre-med students since 1999, and it is very hard when students want to be a physician and they apply the first cycle and it doesn't happen the first time that they apply to medical school, and they have no parallel plan in place. The parallel plan, I'm not calling it a plan B, because a plan B sounds like plan A is never going to work, i.e. going to medical school is never going to work, so you have to shift gears and do this other thing. A parallel plan is, I'm applying to medical school, but I know I don't have as much research experience as other people are probably having. So my parallel plan is I'm going to get more research experience. So that way, if I reapply, I have more research experience that I can bring to the table, okay? Make sure that your support system knows about how competitive it is, because I've dealt with a lot of parents in my advising career, and parents just don't understand that their child is amazing, but unfortunately they're going through a competitive process with lots of other amazing people. Some more tips: make sure that your personal statement is really specific towards career in medicine. Like I said, we really want to see a passion and interest in the field. Sometimes we read personal statements and we're like, oh, I don't know what the student wants to do with that, okay? On AMCAS, you're limited to 15 extracurricular activities. 3 of those are going to be your most meaningful. So think very clearly and carefully on how you want to portray that information. You'll have description areas. Use that up to give us as much detail as you can. We like to see numbers. If you were the treasurer of your sorority and there were 130 members and you were responsible for a budget of $200,000, that helps us know a little bit more specifically, instead of I was treasurer of my sorority, I managed the budget. We also like to see long-term commitment to activities. So what I always recommend you do is, before you submit your AMCAS application, is convert all of your extracurriculars into sort of a timeline to see if you're missing out on something. So maybe sophomore year of college, you had to pick up a job at Chili's waiting tables to help finance medical or college, and you had to drop out of a couple of extracurriculars because you were working so many hours. And so when you look at your timeline, you don't have anything for your sophomore year. Put that you waited tables at Chili's, that you were responsible for your financing, your college experience and stuff like that. Because without it, we just assume you kind of took the easy route, the lazy route, if you will, but you worked. I mean, that's really important. And it tells a lot about you to us, about your stick with itness, and your ability to kind of be responsible in this world. So make sure there aren't any gaps. The secondary application software that Vanderbilt uses, and that pretty much all the other medical schools that you'll be applying to uses, something called AMP. And AMP converts your extracurriculars from your AMCAS into this like colorful little timeline. So make sure there aren't any gaps to that, okay? And the last thing, I just really want to make sure that as you progress towards your career in medicine, that you become comfortable asking for help. Pre-med students typically are very self-sufficient. Whenever I would tell my students when I was an advisor, hey, we're going to do a group project, the students would just groan because they didn't want to deal with anybody else. They wanted to be responsible and do it on their own because other people have always let them down in group projects and stuff. But one of the transitions that our students have is going from kind of being self-sufficient to survive in college, to be successful as a pre-med student, to coming to medical school where it's trying to simulate all these self-sufficient people into being dependent on each other to do timelines and readings and things like that. We also want to make sure that your mental health is taken care of. So we want you to feel comfortable asking for help with that kind of stuff. So my last tip is get comfortable asking for help. It'll help you out a lot in the long run. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see y'all asking questions. So, and I think a couple of questions popped up in the chat. So I was supposed to speak up more. Sorry.
Oh, that was great. Thank you so much, Jen. This is a great time for anybody to ask questions. Great. I see some hands going up. Go ahead, Preston.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. I'm just curious if you have any advice about, I guess, standing out from like the pile. Like I've talked to people doing admissions before, and just the fact that there's so much volume with med school applications compared to maybe PhD or MSTP, that like, how do we not seem like the same like type that comes through or show ourselves in that?
Very good question. So that's going to come out through what your evaluators say about you and your letters of recommendation, and then the things that you put on your extracurricular activities that kind of show what makes you you. So when I was an advisor, it was very hard for my students to feel comfortable listing hobbies on their AMCAS because they're like, well, that's not pre-med. Nobody cares that I did weightlifting. Nobody cares that I paint pictures or whatever, but no, that gives us some insight, and it shows us that you have an outlet for stress. And we had a student a couple of years ago, she made jewelry, and I just thought that was really fascinating. And so on our interview day, we were talking about jewelry, and she showed me some of the pieces, she was wearing some of the pieces that she had made, and it kind of shows, it stands out. I don't want you to feel like everything you do in college has to pertain to medicine. Oh, I make jewelry because I like to work on my manual dexterity so I can be a great heart surgeon. No. We just want you to have something that makes you you. With that.
Vilma, go for it.
Hi there. Thank you also for your presentation. It was very informative. I had a question about the personal statement, and I was wondering if you had any thoughts about including kind of a brief discussion about certain medical exposures or medical experiences. Like for me, for example, I did something in high school as a caretaker, which really solidified my path. Is that something that we should only really talk about in the experiences section, or can we develop that in the personal statement as well?
That's a great question. So technically, the letter of the law on your AMCAS extracurricular is you have to list everything post-secondary. So if you did something your sophomore year of high school, technically speaking, you're not supposed to put it on there, but there's no AMCAS police out there or anything like that. So, I mean, if you put it, it's fine and stuff. But if you list it and then you don't have anything that you've done in college, that looks a little desperate, shall we say, to get some sort of medical experience. Now, a theme for your personal statement could very well be, how did the seed get planted for a career in medicine? You were a caretaker. And then what have you done to keep fanning those flames, make sure this is what you want to go into? We read statements like that often. The one cautionary note I give for that is that sometimes people will talk about a family member who became ill and passed away. And so sometimes we read a lot about grandma getting sick and grandma dying. So if that's the case, what did you do to help grandma? Like if you were grandma's caretaker or medical translator because she didn't speak English and you went to all of her visits with grandma, that is going to resonate a little bit more with a committee than grandma got sick, grandma died, and I was sad and now I want to be a doctor. And I say that out of a loving place. I just lost my grandmother. So grandmas are very important. We love them, but just kind of make sure that if you're going to write about a medical experience, talk about kind of what you did with that a little bit more.
Brooklyn, how about you go?
Yeah, I just had a question, like kind of going off the personal statement. So this might be like, I don't know. I was just gonna add, like, do you include like everything from your experiences in your personal statement, or is it more like a story of what should you include? And I've heard many different ways of writing how people write them, so I'm kind of confused on what to include, I guess. And if it's like more of a story or how that is.
Sure. So in your personal statement, you have 5,300 characters, and that's going to go pretty quickly. So I would personally recommend avoiding a narrative resume where, hey, my freshman year of college, I did this, and then my sophomore year did that, junior year did this, and now I'm applying to medical school, because we'll already see all the extracurriculars and stuff you've done. Think of your personal statement think of your AMCAS application as a puzzle, and that personal statement is another piece of that puzzle. And it just kind of tells us a little bit more about kind of what makes you tick. And so if you want to tell a story about an extracurricular and kind of go into more detail about it, that's fine, kind of how you grew as an individual. Okay, fine. But you need to kind of, once again, remember, we're trying to figure out why you want to be a doctor. And so if you talk about how, you played club tennis in college and it took a lot of time and you had to do fundraisers and stuff, and then you won the club tennis trophy national championship of the world. Okay, but you need to kind of tell us why you want to be a doctor. So maybe parlaying your work with club tennis and how it taught you leadership and discipline, and you were able to use those skills when you worked in the hospital as a scribe, and stuff like that. So remember, at the end of the day, we're kind of trying to figure out why you want to be a doctor in your personal statement. So don't make us work too hard to kind of use transferable skills like, well, club tennis requires a lot of discipline, so maybe she wants to use that for her career in medicine. I don't know. When I was an advisor, I used to tell my students, it's easier for me to tell you what your personal statement should not be than what it should be. Like, avoid, a lot of like quotes from this book and that book and stuff like that. Sometimes students give a lot of like surface information because they run out of character space. So maybe it's better to drill down deeper into like one area and use those other things you planned on talking about and saving those for interviews or secondary essays, since the 5,300 characters go so quickly. And give yourself plenty of time to write their personal statement, because like when I would do workshops for my students, the personal statement workshop started in March. So, and AMCAS opens up in May, and the plan of action was you were done with that beast, so you could get it off your desk come June 1. So the software, the AMCAS software, is not highly functional for like word processing tools and stuff. So you want to make sure there's no, transposed letters in a word or things like that. So give it plenty of time. And I think that there were 2 questions that kind of go hand in hand, sort of, about international students. And so with Vanderbilt being a private institution, we do not view international students any differently. It makes no matter to us that you're from Germany and not from Germantown, Tennessee, or whatever. I'm trying to use German here. But it doesn't matter, okay? But I will say the things that being an international student matters with is, number 1, funding medical school. So as an international student, you are not eligible for the federal aid that a lot of your classmates will get through FAFSA. So you'll have to have a US cosigner to help sign any kind of loans from banks and whatnot. There are a couple of companies that give educational loans to international students. They are challenging to work with for our students. So I wouldn't bet on using those services if that makes sense for this. So the other thing is, for Vanderbilt, you are totally eligible for our merit-based scholarships and our need-based scholarships that we offer here at Vanderbilt. So for merit-based, we offer either, and this is for everybody, either 75% tuition for all 4 years or 100% tuition for all 4 years. And for need, we are committed to meeting at least 25% of your demonstrated need for medical school. So as international students, you're absolutely eligible for that. The difference is just the additional FAFSA funding.
All right, Preston, go for it.
Yeah, while we were back to talking about experiences, what about like experiences that don't necessarily have to do with medicine, but maybe like you tried business or law or some sort of thing, you're like, I don't like this, like, and it kind of helped point you more towards medicine. Do you recommend putting those in your experiences, or maybe saving that for an interview?
That might be appropriate for an interview a little bit more. I'm just worried that it's going to sound sort of negative in a personal statement. A lot of it depends on kind of the word choosing, or the word choices that you elect to use. But I don't know, I'm just afraid, like, I tried law and I didn't like that. And I tried research and PhD and didn't like that. So I settled upon medicine. That might be a better topic in an interview. So your interviewer can ask follow-up questions, can look at your, tone, your body language, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Because nobody wants to be around negative people. And I just don't want that to be kind of their feeling after reading your personal statement.
Great. Spencer, I see you have a question.
Yeah, I had a question about like the little activity descriptions. So for those, I know we're gonna have less characters, but should they be, should we try to make those more, story-like, or, I know you want us to be very specific, and not as, I just listing like what we did, I did this, like a general job description, like how do we, show the fullness of that experience through our descriptions.
So for your 15 entries, you'll have 725 characters, and then 3 of those you'll have an additional 1,325 characters. So what we like to see is kind of what you did in the activity and then kind of what you gained from it. So complete sentences are helpful because it shows us your communication skills. I would say probably like 98% of the students use full sentences in kind of a story-like format in that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other questions about applying, about Vanderbilt, about students in Nashville?
About funding medical school, whatever the case may be. It's all fair game. I will not judge you. I want this to be a safe space.
See some hands going up. I saw you first, Vilma. Go for it.
Hi there. So I had a question about gap years. So I go to a school where like it's quite academically rigorous. And so sometimes I feel that while I'm actually studying, I'm not able to maybe make the most of different medical exposures, and I have to save that for the breaks in the summer. And similarly, like my final year, I'll be working on like a research thesis, and that's kind of after the fact if interviews are happening during the summer and early fall. So I was wondering, what was your advice about how do you know if a gap year is right for you, and kind of is that something that you should plan for, or is that something that you can kind of use as like a parallel plan as you had mentioned in your presentation?
That's a great question. So for my students who are, oh wow, third years now, in that class, 70% of those students had at least one transition year before starting medical school. And the class right below that, my now second years, it was 60%. I haven't had a chance to even take a deep breath, much less analyze the students that are coming in right now that just joined us. I would venture to say it's going to be a lot lower, just because I think part of the reason why we had so many applicants apply to med school last cycle was they couldn't find jobs in a transition year. If you think of where we were spring of 2020, and they're like, med school is a safe haven, I'm just gonna, apply for that and, work an odd job and stuff just to make money. So, but who knows why they all took or applied last year, but nonetheless. So transition year. The challenge with the transition years, like let's say you graduated or will graduate from college in 4 years, right? The challenge is with the timing of the application. You're submitting your AMCAS application right around a little bit after you graduate from college, if you graduate in spring of your 4th year. So you have to make plans on what you're going to do in that transition year if you want that to make an impact during your 4th year. So case in point, let's say, for example, you are going to, you're going to teach biology at a private school because a lot of times they don't require teaching certificates at a private school. So, okay, fine, right? So you'll want to go ahead and make your plans and get hired on, even though your start date at, XYZ private school isn't until August 15th or whatever. With rolling admissions, you want to be one of the first ones out of the gate. So what you're going to do is on your AMCAS, put your start date of June 1, and then in the description say, starting August 15th of 2023 or whatever year it is, I will be a biology teacher at XYZ high school, and my responsibilities will include blah, 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 blah. That's going to serve as kind of a placeholder for you when we're looking at your file. Now, on our application, on our secondary, we ask you, if you graduated, what are you doing in your transition time? Because we have a lot of people that take a transition year. So if, let's say you graduate and you're like, I don't know what, I just need to take a break from school, which is totally fine. On the secondary, that would be your opportunity to then let us know what you're doing in that transition year. We also here at Vanderbilt will also accept an update to your file. So let's say you sent in your secondary and you were applying for scribe positions and no contracts had come your way. You're still applying and trying to figure out where you're going to work or whatnot. But let's say, and you want to go ahead and send that secondary. So you send us the secondary in August, and then October 1st, you get hired at Piedmont Hospital to be a medical scribe. You can send us an update and say, just want to let you know, I just got hired on as a medical scribe, my responsibility, and we'll put that in your file and stuff. So those are kind of your workarounds with doing the transition year. I will tell you this, there's one very prestigious medical school outside Vanderbilt, but there's one, and I don't want to name the name of the medical school because I don't I don't work for that school, but their director of admissions point blank said, if we could require everybody to have a transition year before starting med school, we would. We know we can't, but that's how much we value it in our admissions process. Just because you learn a lot about yourself when you're not in school. It's an identity shift, because since you were 5 years old, your identity has been to be a student. And so now you've got a new identity that's coming into play and stuff. So it allows you the opportunity to explore that a little bit more, to learn a little bit more about what motivates you when it's not the 8 a.m. test that you have or whatever, you know. Plus, you've been working so hard since you were 5 years old, really, to be a pre-med student. Sometimes it's nice to just take a break a little bit before taking a deep breath and diving in for lifelong learning. So it's not something that is going to be a strike against you, unless you come at it like, I need to take a year off because I'm distressed. Okay, so it's just how you kind of approach that when you talk about it in your interview.
Vilma, go for it.
Oh, my apologies. I think I needed to lower my hand.
Oh, okay, no problem. Brooklyn.
Yeah, I just had another quick question. So for rolling in admissions, then what is like the earliest date you can submit it, which I'm sure is the ideal date you want to be done with everything and submit typically?
So AMCAS will open up in May. So if you're not applying this cycle and you're just feeling frisky and you want to create an AMCAS application, you can totally like open one up and just kind of click around it to see what it's all about. Whatever login credentials they give you will be the credentials you'll have for like your MCAT registration and all sorts of things, right? Do not put anything in there now because it won't roll over for next cycle. So don't spend time filling it out, but just at least get an idea of what it's going to look like and stuff for you if you want to go ahead and do it now. You don't have to, but some people are ambitious. Okay, fine. So AMCAS will open up in May, the calendar year before you want to start medical school. So if you're thinking, okay, I want to start med school in 2024, that means spring of 2023, you're getting your ducks in a row. So in February, you're asked and thinking about who you're going to ask to write letters of recommendation. In March, you're writing that personal statement. In April, you know, you're following up with people to make sure that those letters are coming in. At your schools, you might have pre-med advisor committees. They might be doing their interviews in April, who knows? But you basically, the end of the spring is when you want to have everything kind of done by that's within your control. So AMCAS opens up at the beginning of May. You cannot formally submit it until the beginning of June. You'll need to send transcripts from all the educational institutions you've attended for higher education. So if you did joint enrollment in high school at Columbia State Community College and also at Brentwood High School, you have to send transcripts from Columbia State Community College, even if that transfer or credit transferred to your University of Tennessee transcript or whatever, right? That takes a little bit of time because you have to be very patient with colleges to send transcripts. AMCAS takes about 4 to 6 weeks to verify your application materials. And when I say verify your AMCAS application, it's basically looking to see you entered in your transcript information correctly, because you have to hand enter. Fall of 2020, I took Biology 101, which is called Principles of Biology, and it's a 4 credit hour course, and I made it hand write it. It takes forever. So AMCAS verifies it. No medical school will know that you've applied to their institution for the last Friday of June. Then at that time, medical schools who have asked AMCAS to send them all application materials will get a list of the names and email addresses of the students who have applied there. So you might not be verified. They might not have made sure that you were correct on your transcript information, but you'll go ahead and get a secondary from that school. Vanderbilt is different in that we only send transcripts to verified AMCAS applications. The reason why is we screen out who we give secondaries to. Whereas most medical schools will send secondaries to everybody who's applied. We do not. Secondaries are $85. I do not feel comfortable taking $85 from somebody who at the end of the day, we wouldn't be able to admit. So we screen out. So the beginning of, for us, when we start sending off secondaries, it's after 4th of July. So right around like July 8th, July 10th, depending on how life is going, we'll start sending out secondaries. Once you get a secondary from any institution, you don't want to hold on to it for more than 2 weeks. Fill it out, send it back to the institution. At that point in time, your letters of evaluation will hopefully have met your in the files and stuff at all these different medical schools you've applied to. The AMCAS software uses the letter writers application that your undergraduate institutions committees will upload their letters to, or individuals will send their letters to them. You'll indicate in your AMCAS that you want these letters sent to these schools, this letter sent to this school, whatever, right? So for us, at the end of July, beginning of August, we'll start looking through the secondaries we've received, and we'll start going ahead and deciding who we want to bring in for an interview. Interviews for us start the beginning of September and go into the end of January, Mondays and Fridays. So when is it too late to apply? Gosh, it's really hard, but let me tell you this fun fact. So when I was at Georgia Tech, my students who applied at the beginning of the cycle to August 15th versus August 16th to December 31st, right? Statistically speaking, there were no noticeable differences between those two groups. Same median GPA, same median MCAT, gender breakdown, racial breakdown was pretty similar. Numbers were very similar. My first group that applied early in the cycle would typically hover around 92, 93% acceptance rate. My second group would hover around 20, 22% acceptance rate. So that shows you how important rolling admissions is in the process for medical school.
Jen, I know we're past the hour. There are a few questions in the chat, but
Yeah.
I want to respect your time.
It's fine. I would like to answer these if this is okay.
Sure. Do you mind if I make you the host? I actually have to sneak to a meeting.
Totally fine.
Okay. Yeah. Everyone, it was great to see you. And Jen, thank you for staying on a little bit longer. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So we've got a question. We got a couple of questions. Let's see. What are the most important qualities you look at in applicants? And what would be the timeline for undergrads who are just going straight into medical school? So the timeline kind of went over a little bit already. The most important qualities, gosh, it's really hard to say like this is the most important thing to look at. A better example might be like, have you guys watched like the hurdlers in the Olympics? You know, they jump over this hurdle and they run and jump over it. Okay, so let's look at this like hurdles. Like the first hurdle you have to jump over is, can you handle the rigors of medical school? And so we don't have a GPA or an MCAT cutoff. We just are just not comfortable admitting somebody that we don't think can handle the rigors of medical school. So it's not as easy as, you know, anything below 3.5 GPA, we know they can't handle medical school, or anything below a 515 MCAT or anything like that. We're not that prescribed like that, but I will say everything is kind of looked at holistically, you know. First generation college student, maybe you went to a college that didn't have a whole lot of pre-med advising. You know, those kind of factors come into play. Trends in performance, you know, did you start off rocky in undergrad and then raise your GPA every semester, but your cumulative GPA didn't go anywhere? Those kind of factors come into play. So after we feel pretty confident you can handle the rigors of medical school, the second hurdle that you jump over is, will you be a doctor? So do you have the extracurriculars? Do you have the medical exposures, the community engagement, the leadership, the research, the uniqueness factors that we're kind of looking for, along with the passion for medicine? If we feel pretty confident in that, then we're going to bring you in for an interview. And then at the interview, the hurdle you're jumping over right there is, should you be a doctor? And so that's when we really kind of suss out, are you somebody your classmates are going to want to be around all day? And are you somebody that your patients will feel comfortable exposing personal information to? After we feel confident, you jumped over that hurdle. The last hurdle is this the right medical school for you? There's 150 some odd med schools out there. We're all a little bit different. We just want to make sure that this is going to be the right place for you to thrive and grow. I tell people on interview day, I make no bones about it. If you're looking for a medical school where you can be anonymous, do your own thing, not be engaged with the community, this is not the right medical school for you. There are other medical schools that you are very, you have to be very self-sufficient to thrive there and stuff. That's not who we are. If you're looking for a medical school that's very collaborative, that we look after each other, it's family oriented, this is the right place for you to be. And sometimes on interview day, students just don't feel the right vibe there. They feel like it's too, like one student, we do this withdrawal survey for people who don't elect to come to Vanderbilt and they like to go elsewhere. And one student said it just felt very Disney at Vanderbilt. And I'm like, if that's the worst thing you can say about us, I'm okay with that. So let's see. What portion of Vanderbilt's costs can be covered through federal loans? Yeah, so the federal loan limit, I feel like it's 53,000, I think. So basically what happens is once you're admitted, and we're need blind when it comes to the admissions process, once you're admitted, our committee will decide if you're going to receive a merit-based scholarship. And if you do, like I said, it's either 100% tuition for all 4 years or 75 cap tuition for all 4 years. If you do not receive a merit, then you'll be eligible for a need-based loan, and need-based scholarship. We're committed to meeting 25% of your demonstrated need. I want to be very clear with the word demonstrated. That is important because for some people, they feel like they need a lot of money for medical school because mom and dad aren't going to pay for them to go to medical school, so they need all the money. But mom and dad, own yachts and private airplanes and stuff like that, and so they have access to funds. There's not being able to. Parents aren't giving them the money for medical school. That's very different than somebody who, parents are barely scraping by. They can't ask for help from family members and stuff. So that's where the difference between demonstrating comes into play. So then that factor, we give you money and award you, and it's kind of a sliding scale. I think the most we gave out this year was 19,000, maybe 19,000 in need-based scholarships. So the remaining part of what we call your cost of attendance, you can apply your FAFSA to that. For FAFSA, it doesn't matter about your family of origin, just because FAFSA only unlocks your federal aid. It doesn't help us with any of the scholarshiping and loans and stuff like that. So, so then the remainder, if you still need additional funds, that would be through what we call the Grad Plus loan option, which is another loan opportunity that we can slide in there. Sometimes students will say, hey, I'm not going to take out the Grad Plus loan because there's this other loan at my family's bank for people who want to be doctors, and that's the one I'm going to utilize instead. You have more control over your lending streams and how you kind of manage that. Sometimes students say, hey, I want to take out all of my FAFSA eligibility my first year. And then they live as a medical student for a year. And then maybe they go, you know what? I ended up with $15,000 that I never used. So next year I'm going to refuse $15,000 of that. So I'm not paying back loans for the rest of my life. We do a lot of debt management education, so our students kind of know a little bit more about what is coming down the pipe for them. Because if you're like a lot of my pre-med students, you're worried right now about just getting into med school. Financing happens sometime, somewhere and stuff, but it's just something for you to consider. How are gap semesters viewed? It depends on what you mean by gap semester. So are you talking about you're not going to take courses because you're going to work, or you're doing co-op? Like, I don't know what a gap semester would be. I don't know if that person's still on the call. Okay, we'll come back to that then. Let's see. Okay, so if you take time off from courses to work in a medical clinic and do research, that's fine. It's kind of understandable. For any school, they're probably going to want to know a little bit about why that was kind of the your MO for going through undergrad, because most people want to get done with undergrad pretty quickly. So I don't know if it's one of those things where one semester in class, one semester off, one semester in class, one semester off, or if you just took one semester off and did research and work in a clinic. I think it's going to be viewed a little bit differently, but since that is not the norm, be prepared for interviewers to ask a little bit more about kind of what was the thought process behind that. It might be something when you're listing your extracurriculars, talking about working in the medical clinic or doing research. If you're getting paid and it helped you finance your living expenses while a college student, you might want to address that. Your evaluators might also address it in your letters of evaluation. I don't think it would be looked upon negatively unless there are other negative things in your application, if that makes sense. Okay, any other questions or comments, anything that I didn't discuss?
I have a question, but it's really short, if that's
Sure.
okay.
That's fine.
So in the AMCAS application, is it possible to tailor kind of certain activities for specific medical schools, or is the whole application just sent to all the medical schools you selected?
So on AMCAS, it will go to all schools. We'll see the entire same application. And this is so important to remember because a number of years ago, we had a student who didn't realize that, and the personal statement was all about how much he wanted to go to Duke for medical school. So you can imagine that didn't go well for him. So yeah, that goes to everybody. And then the secondaries will be your opportunity to really customize and tailor. All righty. Any other questions or comments or concerns? Nope. Feeling well versed. All righty. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really nice to see y'all. And if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. Take care.
Check out our website to find recordings of all of our videos. We'll get them posted about a week after each of the presentations. We can't wait to see you.